welcome to Writer to Writer. I'm your host, Kat Filer, also known as KJ Filer, and my guest today is Lisa Kline. Lisa always wanted to write and penned her very first story in first grade on wide-lined paper. She graduated from Duke University and then received an MA in communications with a major in writing for radio, television, and motion pictures from UNC Chapel Hill. She did 15 years as a freelancer, writing articles, speeches, training tapes, brochures, whatever someone would pay her to write. After her daughter was born, she resurrected her dream of writing stories and wrote Under the Jello, which was reprinted in Spider magazine. She went on to write Eleanor Hill, which won the North Carolina Juvenile Literary Award. She published 8 more novels and a novella for young readers, Princess of Atlantis, Right Before Your Eyes, the 5 books Sisters in All Seasons series, One Week of You, 1 Week of the Heart, and her first adult novels, Between the Sky and Sea and Ladies' Day, were published in 2023. Lisa, it's so good to see you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great, Kat. I'm just so thrilled to be on. Thank you so much.
Well, you were requested, so you were on my...
That makes me feel so happy. I mean, I'm just thrilled to have readers out there. That's great.
You were on my list too, but right now I'm working through the list of people actually asked for. So you're on that one too. So just get right into it. How did it happen that you had 3 books come out in 1 year?
Well, it was kind of strange. I had been sending out my 2 novels that I had written, and I was mostly concentrating on Between the Sky and the Sea because it was my latest one. I had written Ladies' Day before that and hadn't found any interest in it, and so I kind of put it in the drawer for a while, and I was waiting to hear on Between the Sky and the Sea. And meanwhile, I had published quite a few essays, and I just for my daughters, really, I wanted to put the essays together in a book. So I collected them together in a book, and I got that one ready to come out. And then I heard from Dragon Blade Publishing that they might have an interest in my manuscript, Between the Sky and the Sea. But they wanted me to revise it because I had been a children's writer before. They wanted to have confidence that I could really carry off an adult novel. And so they asked me to to kind of redo the first 50 pages and resubmit them to them. And so I was very excited about it, and I did a lot of work on it. I kept revising and thinking I was ready to send it, that no, I'll revise more. And I finally sent it to them. And then while I was waiting to hear back from them, I saw a tweet from Sue Arroyo, who is the CEO of CamCat Books. And she said in that tweet, she said, I want some stories about women in their 50s, about kick-ass women in their 50s. And I thought, my story, Ladies' Day, is about kick-ass women in their 50s. And so I got that manuscript out of the drawer, and I sent that off to CamCat and then forgot all about it. And then meanwhile, I did hear back from Dragon Blade about Between the Sky and the Sea. And they said, we like it, we'll take it, we'd like to sign a contract with you. And then just a few weeks later, Sue Arroyo called me up from CamCat and said, I want to buy your book. So I just ended up with 3 books in 1 year, and I've had a lot of years that were just where there was nothing, so writing is just a very up and down type of thing, as you well know. So I just thought, well, I'm just going to ride this wave. I'm just going to go with it. So I was editing for a couple of weeks. I would be editing on one and working with the editor on one, and then I'd switch to the other. And I was very, very busy last fall while I was trying to get these books edited and ready to come out.
It certainly sounds like it. So, was there anything that surprised you during the writing of Between the Sky and the Sea?
I had done what I thought was a lot of historical research. I had started out, I originally got interested in it when the Charlotte Observer was reporting that the Pulaski steamship remains had been found off the coast of North Carolina, about 30 miles off the coast of North Carolina, in like summer of 2018, I guess. And I became very interested in it. I was reading all the articles that the Observer had about all the gold coins they were finding and different silver, and people were taking on the Pulaski. They left Savannah to go to Baltimore to escape the heat, the southern heat. And so they were going to be entertaining because they're going to be there all summer. So they took all their silver, their china, and they took a lot of gold with them, and they took a lot of stuff. And so when they found the Pulaski, they found a bunch of all that stuff down there, and I was fascinated with it. And I then found an article that had been written in 1838 in the Delaware Gazette that said that there were these two people who had noticed each other on board the Pulaski, and they hadn't been formally introduced. But after the sinking, when everybody was in the water, the young man had lashed two deck settees together to form a raft, and he had put a sail underneath, and it was kind of, you know, rickety, but it was a raft. And he saw this young woman that he had noticed earlier in the water near him, so he pulled her onto the raft with him. And so they survived the sinking, and I guess most of the people on the ship did not. But there were several large rafts of people who actually survived. And then it recounted in the article that 4 days later, when they were rescued, they were engaged, even though they had never met each other before. And I don't know whether that article was true or not. I don't know if the reporter might have made up things in order to sell newspapers, because the names on the in the article were not in the list of passengers. So who knows? But I was fascinated, and I thought, well, they only knew each other for 4 days before they married. What was their marriage like? How did their marriage survive after an engagement, a 4-day engagement during a time of crisis and trauma? I was just fascinated by it, and I thought it would be really fun to try to imagine what they were like and what their first year of marriage might have been like. So that's what I set as a goal to write about. And I had done a lot of research. I wasn't able to go to Savannah to do research because it was COVID. So I was doing all my research online, but I felt like I had done enough research. I felt, I think this is right. Like I have them, they're floating along, and I have them mention certain books that they share conversations about their books. And I really wanted to use The Little Mermaid in their discussion because it came out in 1837, but my editor, who was so eagle-eyed, she pointed out that it came out only in Danish in 1837. So in 1838, when the Pulaski wrecked, my characters would not have been able to read it. So I did find that it was my first historical fiction other than my first novel, which was based on my grandmother's letters and photographs. So I didn't have to do as much secondary research as I did for this. And I thought I had done enough, and I realized that I needed to take it one step further. And like, if I think that a book has been published at a certain time, I need to make sure it came out in English, So that I thought I was prepared, but I realized that the level of research for historical fiction is really very involved.
It is.
So I was lucky to have a good editor who caught that.
Yeah.
So
how did you do that during a pandemic? Do the research?
I did almost all of it reading books. I ordered a lot of books about Savannah, about life in the South for women in 1838. I read about, all the different locations where they were. And I also used Google Maps a lot. I would go to Savannah and on Google Maps and try to figure out well, let's see, where would her house be? Would their hat shop be? How long would it take to get there, how far are they from the docks where they're driving down to get on the Pulaski? And so I spent a lot of time doing that, and hours and hours. And it really took much less time when when COVID was finally dying down a little bit and we were able to get vaccinated. I did book a trip, and I had already sold the manuscript to Dragon Blade, but I didn't want to publish it without actually going to Savannah. So my husband and I went to Savannah for a weekend, and I got to visit all the places that I had researched and imagined in my mind that my character Lavinia might be in her carriage going down this street or that street. And it was wonderful to go there and be able to see the streets themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. You said
It
that you
was.
would honor us with a small excerpt from your book. For dear
Oh, I would
reading.
love to. Yes, I would love to. And I want to show you the beautiful cover. I'm really
Absolutely.
thrilled with what Dragon Blade did. So
It's a gorgeous cover.
yeah, it really is. I thought I'd take apart. Lavinia and Daniel were on the raft for 4 days before they were actually rescued. And so I can tell a little bit more about this after I read this, but I wanted to just read a little portion from when they're floating.
Okay.
And he actually wears glasses, and during the wreck of the Pulaski, he lost his glasses. So she's the one who has to be looking out for ships and such, because he can't see that well.
Oh.
So, I'll start here. She scanned the horizon in desperation. Something white inched along. Her breath hitched. Mr. Ridge, look over there. Is that a ship? Mr. Ridge stirred, opened his eyes, and squinted. I'm afraid I can't see. Do you indeed see a ship? That would be a miracle. Something is moving quite a distance away. She watched the tiny patch of white slide along the surface of the water for a few minutes, trying to determine if it was real or a mirage. At last, she scrambled to her knees and waved her arms. Help, help! She'd once learned to whistle to get the attention of her pony, and she put her fingers in her mouth now and whistled as loudly as she was able. Mr. Ridge got up on his knees as well, and they knocked down their tent, and both nearly fell into the water from waving their arms and shouting. She didn't know how long they yelled and waved, but it felt like eternity. Her throat felt hoarse, and her arms and knees ached, and still she waved one arm, holding onto Mr. Ridge's elbow with the other. The seconds dragged by as exhaustion overtook her, but the ship never wavered in its progress, and they watched helplessly as the tiny white sails slid across the horizon and then out of sight. She sank onto the skirt of her now sodden petticoat and wept, although she had no tears, only dry sobs. Mr. Ridge lay down beside her and took her into his arms. She let him hold her as she cried uncontrollably, their sunburned faces touching. They couldn't see us. She felt such hopelessness. That was quite an impressive whistle, he said at last. Thank you. I learned it as a girl to call my pony Balderdash. They lay together for a long time after that, feeling completely emptied of any remaining energy or hope. Then they set up their tent again and lay back down in each other's arms. Long stretches of time drifted by. The sun rose higher in the sky and seemed determined to burn them to ash. The horizon was empty in all directions. Lavinia's spirits plunged, and she concluded with unassailable certainty that they would indeed die out here. Is there anything that you wish you'd done in your life that you haven't, Mr. Ridge? Do you wish you had traveled more, seen the Taj Mahal? He lay still for a few seconds, his eyes closed. I would have liked to have had a wife and children. What about you? She regarded him. I've come to the right age of 22 without being kissed. I always wished for a love match, but never found one. I wished just once that I might have been kissed. Mr. Ridge opened his eyes and sat up. He looked into hers and reached up and gently pushed a strand of hair from her face. I will kiss you, Miss Onslow. It would be my great honor and pleasure to do so. And I'll stop right there. So.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
I love that scene where he tells her he'll kiss her. I thought it was a wonderful moment. So that's why I chose it. So,
That's a very tender moment. I love that one. What was your favorite part of the book?
I believe my favorite part, I guess I have two favorite parts. Um, the where they were floating together, because I really was thinking about, so what would they do? Would they look at the stars? Would they share things about each other? How it would be like getting to know someone, but in a really compressed period of time, and also in a lot of danger. And so, I thought about what types of danger will they face, and how will they handle it, and how will they be resourceful and figure out what they have on them that they can use to survive. So I found really entertaining to come up with what happened during those 4 days. And then later in the story, Lavinia says after the wreck that she's never going to get on a boat again. She never will. But of course, when someone in a book says that, that that's going to be their big test, and that they have to go get on the boat again. And I think that when she goes and gets on the boat the second time, I really enjoyed writing that part as well.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's really cool.
yeah.
So did you already know how the story would end when you sat down to write it?
No,
No.
not at all. I really didn't. In fact, there were some times I have two writers groups, and I count on my writers groups just really, really a lot, and I trust them so much. I originally had envisioned the story as ending when they were rescued.
Mhm.
And the writers in my group said, no, you can't end it. Everybody wants to know what happens. Everybody wants to know if they get married and how it goes, and you have to continue. So for a while I was just feeling my way along, like, that famous saying by El Doctorow, you can make the trip, it's writing is like driving in the dark. You can make the trip with your headlights, but you can only see as far as your headlights, but you can make the trip that way. Well,
Yeah.
I was kind of doing that. I kind of knew, okay, I know it's going to be at the end of this chapter, and I know where I'm going in this chapter. But then I really did, after I finished a draft, I had to go back and move a lot of things around. I had to massively, massively revise it once I got it done. It was just going, being a pantser rather than a plotter, I think does create a lot more work.
It does,
So,
but I think sometimes if you plot things out, you end up having to be open to the ideas that your characters might have another avenue in mind.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I felt like when we finally found our way there, the characters and I had all earned it. So that was, it was very satisfying, I think. And I feel like the end is a satisfying ending.
I thought that it was. I like the story very much.
Oh,
So
thank you.
do you have a favorite character or a least favorite character in this book?
Oh, it's hard for me I love all my characters. I mean, even the bad guys, I love them. I just become very attached to them. I really, I have to say that I don't have a favorite. When I'm writing, whoever I'm writing about at the time is my favorite. So,
Yeah. Well, and that speaks to the fact that your characters are so well rounded, because if a bad guy is just somebody that we all hate, well, then there's something there that was, left to be written. So I liked all your characters, even the
yeah.
bad ones.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very good, very much. Yeah.
They were very well rounded. So In Between the Sky and the Sea is your first adult novel. So could you talk to us
Yes.
a little bit about making the transition from a young writer to writing for adults?
It did take me a while. I think when my youngest daughter left for college, which was, I guess, I'm trying to remember, maybe 2010 or something like that, I started thinking, I only have a few more stories that I know that I want to tell from a young person's point of view. And I had a lot of ideas for adult stories. And so I started writing. I guess I wrote Ladies' Day probably in 2012. So, but here it is, 2023 before it's gotten published. So I started trying, and one of the things about Ladies' Day, it's a contemporary novel, but one way that I was able to use that novel as a transition is because it's in two voices. And one voice is an adult woman in her 50s, and the other voice is a teenage girl, a teen voice. And I had been used to writing those teen voices. And so I felt comfortable with that. And I felt like, okay, I've got half the book. I feel confident about half of this book because half of it is a teen voice. And my challenge is writing from the adult voice.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a way, by making one of the voices in the adult novel a teen voice, a way to kind of channel my way into writing more adult. But when I was revising Between the Sky and the Sea for Dragonblade, when they wanted me to make it more adult, I made my sentences longer. I didn't worry about any word choice at all. I used whatever word I wanted. And, sometimes I'd even look for a big one, and also it was kind of funny because, my husband said, well, probably what they mean by making it more adult is adding more sex. So I did actually, because in my writing for young people, I hadn't written about that at all. So that was a whole new thing. And I did make my main character's thoughts much more mature. I really focused on, what is she thinking? Is this something that a mature young woman would be thinking? And so that, I guess those are the ways that I made the transition. It was a long journey, though, I have to say. It was.
Yeah. That's really interesting. So mothers and daughters are a big theme in Ladies' Day, and also in a lot of your work. So is this an important subject to you?
Oh, very important. Very important. I have two daughters that I love dearly, and we have wonderful relationships. And I had a wonderful and very complicated relationship with my mom. And I also had wonderful relationships with my grandmothers. And I could see my mother's mother had a complicated relationship with her. And in turn, I could see it going down through the generations and how the closeness and the importance of it. So it's just a subject that has fascinated me for a long time.
Yeah.
I guess it's funny though, after I'd written quite a few books where I had a lot of mother-daughter things, with Between the Sky and the Sea, I thought, I'm going to have the mother have passed away, or, when she was a child, because I think I've written about that a lot. And I'm just going to not focus on it in this book. I'm going to focus on other things. So that was kind of a conscious decision that I would not have the mother in that book.
Okay. It's a very odd transition, isn't it? I was just talking to my daughter the other day about how I like her. Like, I love her, obviously, but I like her. And I said, I am so honored that you're my daughter, because if we hadn't been mother-daughter, you wouldn't be interested in being a friend with me. And because I wouldn't be the right age. And then she said that. And she said, I think we just would have had a hard time finding each other. But it was odd that when I said that, she said, I've been thinking that recently myself, that we've transitioned from being mother-daughter to being friends. And it's just
and that's a wonderful thing. Yeah, I just treasure my relationships with my daughters so much.
It is. It's pretty special. So Ladies' Day is about second chances for several of the characters. Is this a personal philosophy that you believe in?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I do think, and that was one of the themes that I wanted to focus on in Ladies' Day. My main character, Beth, I think when she was raising her daughter, maybe she didn't do some things right and she messed up. And this is with the granddaughter, she has another chance to improve and to maybe get it right this time. And also her marriage didn't work out. And in this book, she gets another chance to be happy with a man. Yeah. So I wanted that for her. I wanted that. So
yeah, I love second chances. That's some of my favorite stories.
Yeah,
so,
me too. Me too.
So you already addressed the idea of writing in two voices. Was it a challenge, or was that something that you found to be natural?
It definitely was a challenge because I knew that I needed to work on differentiating the voices. And I perhaps they weren't differentiated enough at first, but having them be in two different, vastly different ages really helped. And knowing that I wanted a teen voice and the middle-aged woman's voice, that helped me differentiate the
Yeah.
voices.
The other nice thing about it was because they were different ages, it was really easy to tell who, they were very clear even without tags and stuff. So that was, and they were so well developed too.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
Ladies' Day and Between the Sky and the Sea are really different books.
they
Are
are.
there threads of similarity in them, in your mind?
Oh yes. I mean, I am preoccupied with the lives of women, I guess, over the years, and women interacting with each other in friendship and also in family relationships. And I think that I tend to write about those things again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And both of your novels were published by small presses, Dragonblade and Camcat Books. And how is that different from working with a bigger publisher?
I have had very good experiences with them. They don't have huge staffs, but the staff members that you interact with really know you as an individual author, and they pay a lot of attention to my one little book. I'm very happy. I couldn't be happier. Really, I'm very pleased.
Yeah. I like the smaller presses. Is if they have a good reputation, they tend to be a little more personal. I
Yeah,
personally get that.
yeah, and I felt like there was so much attention given to the editing. They just
Yeah.
very lots of just tender loving care given to the manuscripts, and I appreciated that so much.
So what is your process for developing characters?
I I start out and I just have them talking in a scene, and I might not know anything about them, and they'll just be talking and moving around, and then I learn a little bit more about them, and then I might have to go back and change that scene. And then sometimes I'll say, okay, well, this person might look like this friend of mine, but she has the personality of another friend, and she has the job of another friend. And so you take all those different things and you put them together, and then they become their own person, and it just becomes more of a real person.
Yeah. Do
And
you ever
yeah.
Sorry. Do you ever sit down and do sort of a personality sketch or anything like that with them, or how do you do
Not
that?
really. No,
No?
not really. A lot of it is intuitive. A lot of it is just taking this piece and this piece and this piece and just kind of putting it together like a ball of clay almost.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's very well done.
Thank
Let's talk
you.
about book ratings. This is something that I'm on a crusade about. A lot of readers don't realize how much it means to an author when you leave a review. So could you speak to your readers about that, how important that is?
All my publishers and all my writer friends tell me that it's very important, it means a lot to me when I go and look at the page, if I can get the courage up. If I go and look at the page and I see good reviews, it really makes me think, oh, I'm going to work really hard on this next book that I'm working on because people liked that one. And I think people do, the way they shop for, say, a rug or anything else, they look at the ratings. And when they're looking at a book, they will read the reviews and make a decision, depending on maybe the number of reviews. If the book doesn't have very many, or if it's not reviewed well, I think they might just make a decision against buying book. So yeah, what are your thoughts on it? Do you have a thought?
I personally live for reviews. If my publisher told me tomorrow that I'm not going to get any money, I would live on reviews.
Oh, really?
I love to hear from readers. To me, that's more important than the royalty check. So it means that somebody didn't just read it, but they took the time to say something to you.
Yes, that is very meaningful. It is
Yeah.
truly very meaningful. And sometimes I'll look at them and I'll just cry. I'll just think, oh,
Yeah,
that really means a lot. Yeah.
for sure. And then the other thing too is for me, writing is a little bit like having a conversation with readers, people that I have never met, would probably ever never
Yeah.
meet. And but if we could connect on some level, it's just magic. So
Yeah. That's so true. That is very true. Yes.
yeah. So do you have a next project? Is there something in the works?
Yes, I'm about 100 pages into my next one. And it's in 3 different voices, and I'm having a blast with it. I'm just having it, I'm kind of making it comic, or it just is coming out. Sometimes when I write things that are more comic, I don't know how it happens. It just, that's how it comes out. So, and this is coming out more comic, and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
So can you give us any information about like what it's going to be about?
Um, well, I don't know if it'll ever get published or anything like that, but it's about a writing group, and I'm trying to. Yeah, I know. So I'm just having a blast with it. It's really I'm having a lot of fun.
I'm going to want to read that behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That's always cool. And whether you're just a reader or if you also write, that's going to be really interesting for you to write about that. So yeah, I'm excited about that. And so please keep me in mind when you've got the next one out so we can have another.
Okay.
Yeah. Would you do us a favor, and do you have a reading available for your other book?
Oh, for Ladies' Day, and I'm just going to read the first 2 pages of this.
Okay.
It's chapter 1, and this is from the point of view of Beth, who is in her 50s, and she's she teaches English at a community college. Beth went by the university to check her mail, and one of her freshman comp students was waiting for her in the faculty parking lot. Beth hadn't seen her in class for weeks and had, in fact, given up on her. But now here she stood in jeans and a t-shirt that looked slept in, shifting her weight from one dirty flip-flopped foot to the other. Mrs. Sawyer, I know I've missed some classes, but can you give me an incomplete? One of her pierced ears was infected. The lobe was an angry red. You have an F, Tiffany, Beth said mechanically, her heart beginning to pound as she unlocked her civic door. That haunted look in Tiffany's eyes, it was like Julie's, and the way she resembled a wild cat yearning for escape. Beth had that sinking feeling she always got when a student self-destructed. Every battle she fought with a student reopened the battles she'd lost with Julie. Mrs. Sawyer, please. The girl's bloodshot brown eyes welled. You have to give me another chance. I got kicked out of my apartment and I've been living in my car. What about your parents? Beth studied Tiffany's face. So many of them lied. The lies they told were endlessly brazen and inventive. Not just the grandparents dying and dogs eating homework and computer malfunctions, but wild stories about crazed roommates and bizarre accidents. If only they put half that creativity into their essays. I can't go back home. Please, just give me an incomplete. I have to get this grade to keep my financial aid. A bluish vein pulsed in the girl's thin neck, and her slender fingers trembled slightly. When had she eaten last? Beth's throat tightened, and she was carried back to that day with Julie, a day she yearned to have a chance to relive. She dug into her purse and pulled out a bar of Hershey's chocolate she had packed for energy during her upcoming golf round and gave it to Tiffany. How much time do you need? She asked. And I'll stop there.
Second chances.
Yeah. Second chances. So it just starts out right there with, that's what this book is about.
Yeah. I just finished the first, and I just got into that one, and I was hoping I would have it done by the time we did the interview, but I am absolutely loving this too. So
oh, you're so nice. Thank you so much. That means so much. It really does.
I'm really, really a fan now. Well, Lisa, it's been an honor and a pleasure. And to listeners, as always, I'll put the links below so that you can find Lisa online and in person. You can find her books and stay abreast of the latest adventures in her life. So thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Oh, it's been a joy. It's been so fun. Thank you so much, Kat. I really appreciate it.